The lost history of this planet is pretty much obvious. It's easier to classify history as a myth if no clear-cut evidence exists of the existence of something that was of immense importance in our ancient past. In this sense, we are basically calling past cultures liars and fantasists, even though there was no reason for a pre-Roman culture to influence the world and indeed their own people in this way. The oral tradition of passing historical events through the generations is possibly the most important tool we have in human understanding of the ancient past. Books are burned and texts destroyed. Civilizations collapse and empires are destroyed, but the human journey continues. In this day and age, we still exercise this method of documentation. Think about this. In the street you grew up in, or the community you were raised, you will have stories about past events that happened when you were growing up. You will reminisce these events when you visit your family or a childhood friend. You will naturally remember these events fondly. Perhaps your children will be hearing these stories for the first time, but not the last. And in that sense, these events are being remembered and documented orally. Nowhere are they written except in the remembrance of your mind, so that's not a myth. Those things you are remembering and the stories you are sharing actually happened, right? This is the same way that we know that ancient historical events did in fact happen, because it is remembered between human to human. Incredible moments and structures have been lost almost without a trace on this planet, but we remember these achievements of a lost civilization because we are the descendants of that civilization that was lost. Wait till you hear this. Ever heard of the Colossus of Rhodes? Built around 280 years before Christ, the Colossus statue was a depiction of the sun god Helios and stood an estimated 108 feet high, which is enormous for a statue, about half the size of the Statue of Liberty, in fact. Rhodes was the most important trading port in the ancient Mediterranean. The statue appeared on contemporary travel writers' list of must-see sites and was thus known as one of the seven wonders of the world, along with sites like the Lighthouse of Alexandria and the Great Pyramid of Giza. Sadly, the giant Helios did not last long. Toppled by an earthquake in 226 BC, its massive broken pieces cluttered the docks of Rhodes for a millennia before being melted down as scrap in the mid-7th century. The man commissioned with the Herculean task of sculpting the giant Helios was Charles of Lindus. The project would not be finished until 280 BC, and as the 1st century Roman writer Pliny the Elder noted, it cost 300 talents and took at least 12 years to complete the bronze figure, which stood some 70 cubits, or 108 feet high. It is likely that the bronze outer shell, presumably applied in sheets and assembled on site, was supported by internal struts made of iron, and certain pieces were weighted with stones to increase the figure's stability. Although Helios was usually envisioned and represented in art as a charioteer with a sun-beamed halo riding across the sky and dragging the sun behind him, the Rhodians perhaps went for a more statuesque representation for their colossal figure, unlike many other super famous sculptures from antiquity, though there are no surviving representations or scale models of the Colossus and other ancient art forms to help reconstruct in detail what the Colossus may have looked like. If the depictions of Helios on the silver coins of Rhodes are anything to go by, we can speculate that the statue may have had the god with his usual crown-appointed sunbeams. A relief of Helios on a stone from a temple at Rhodes has the god shading his eyes with one hand, but whether this was replicating the stance of the Colossus or not is unknown. Similarly, the popular belief that the statue was holding a torch like the US Statue of Liberty is based on the misreading of a later Rhodian poem, thus confusing a real light with the metaphor of one in the statue's original base inscription. The base of the statue carried the following inscription, preserved in the ancient anthology of poetry, the Palatine Anthology. To you, Helios, yes, to you, the people of Dorian Rhodes raised this Colossus high up to the heaven, after they had claimed the bronze wave of war and crowned their country with spoils won from the enemy. Not only over the sea, but also on land they set up the bright light of unfettered freedom. The exact location of the statue is not known, as no ancient writer bothered to say, but the eastern side of the harbor is the most likely spot. Certainly, later Roman statues at ports like Ostia had statues near their harbors which may have mimicked the great example at Rhodes. The medieval fortress of St. Nicholas itself, built on the site of an earlier church dedicated to the same saint, still stands at the Mandrake Harbor Mole. Pagan monument sites were often reused by Christians as a potent symbol of the new order, and there was a tradition in medieval times that the broken feet of the Colossus once stood here. More concrete evidence, well, actually sandstone evidence, is a large circle of cut blocks which could have served as the foundation for the statue's base. In addition, there are fine, slightly curved marble blocks randomly used in the fortresses, walls which date to the 3rd century BC, as well as odd-shaped stones which may have been part of the weights used in the statue's interior. The Colossus, along with many other structures on Rhodes, was toppled by an earthquake in either 228 or 226 BC. According to the Greek geographer and writer Strabo in his Geography, the statue snapped at the knees and then lay forlorn and untouched because the locals believed the great oracle of Delphi prediction that to move it would bring misfortune on the city. Pliny the Elder made the following observations on the Colossus' awesome aspect, even when in fragments. This statue, 56 years after it was erected, was thrown down by an earthquake, but even as it lies, it excites our wonder and admiration. Few men can clasp the thumb in their arms, and its fingers are larger than most statues. Where the limbs are broken asunder, vast caverns are seen yawning in the interior. Within it, too, are to be seen large masses of rock, by the weight of which this artist steadied it while erecting it. Around 654 CE, according to the Byzantine historian Theophanes, when Rhodes was occupied by the Muslims of the Umayyad Caliphate, a Jewish merchant from the city of Edessa in Upper Mesopotamia brought the bronze wreckage of the Colossus to melt down and reuse the metal, transporting it to the east using 900 camels. How very unfortunate that it lay for millennia only to be taken away for scrap. So that is it for now, guys. The Colossus existed, and the glory of the structure has survived throughout the generations. This is just another example, however, of something of massive influence in ancient times, slipping into the contextual references of mythology, when in actual fact it was very real. There is no denying this. Check out the links below for more information, including links to the appropriate locations for you to help support this channel. We hope you have enjoyed the information we have presented to you here today. Comments below, guys, and as always, thank you for watching.